I'm so glad to be here with Women in Communications. And I was sitting there thinking that, you know, if there is a place in hell for women who don't support other women, there's a place in heaven for women who do support other women. And especially this organization, which was so kind to me, even though I embarrassed them. Remember when women used to have little suits and ties and, you know, behave in a corporate way, and some of us were not doing that? And they let me come here and give an award to Callie Curry, during which they let me sort of take off at least some of my clothes and reveal a T-shirt that said, "Thelma and Louise are watching." And I have to say now, I also get to meet a hero of mine who I haven't met before, Queen Latifah. I am so against royalty. This is the only good use of the term queen ever. And the really seriously great thing is that I get to explain why it is that a behind-the-scenes person like Dyllan McGee is transforming the country and maybe the world. I first met this magical, full of ideas Dyllan almost a decade ago when she came to the Women's Media Center to suggest a documentary about the women's movement seen through my eyes. And instead of getting pissed off when I said no one person, you know, can see this big and diverse movement, she went home, was shocked to discover there was no documentary about the women's movement, and decided to make one. And she started with a website, which was itself an innovation. To decide on the first 100 women and girls who are making this country a democracy in spite of itself, she convened big meetings of activists and academics, historians and entrepreneurs. Now that process, as you can imagine, was only a little easier than describing the universe and giving 2 examples. She then set out to interview and do a video profile of each one, from the Little League to Congress, from firefighters to Silicon Valley. And as every filmmaker here knows, this meant doing a lot of fundraising, plus putting together a team of great talents like Betsy West, and also convincing great media partners like AOL and PBS. I can't even list what has resulted. It includes a multi-part, 3-hour PBS special narrated by Meryl Streep that families and communities gathered to watch and talk about, and 4.3 million viewers saw, and it trended #1 on Twitter. Also, the Maker's website, which has the largest video archive of women's profiles ever assembled, a study guide to all this for teachers at every level, 15 million unique viewers to the website, about 40% of whom are men, and short vignettes of interviews you can even see in a New York taxi. Some people may be attracted by women they know, but most comment on the women they don't know. They are meeting thousands of women they have never met. Now coming up next are six new documentaries about women in specific areas, from comedy to space. Also, Dyllan just returned from China, where she has entered into a collaboration with Yanlan, the Chinese Oprah, to profile women who make that country. And so Makers has gone global, and she will be introducing women in one of the most open countries to women in one of the most closed countries. All that is huge, but the true impact is in the hearts and the minds of everyone who sees a profile, and it changes their lives. They learn that a woman can do it. After all, if you can't see it, you can't be it. Just suppose for a minute, this is the best way I've found of explaining how important Dyllan is. If Dyllan had been in history, you would know, and everyone in this room would have grown up knowing, that Mozart's sister was the really talented one, he said. that Alice Guy Blanchet made the first story films in the 1800s and owned and ran the first movie studio in the United States, that the warrior Candace, who defeated Alexander the Great and kept her country out of the Roman Empire, or Nyabingi, who fought to free Africans from English slavery, or the women of the Iroquois Confederacy here who inspired the suffrage movement. Did you know that? Or Catherine Littlefield Greene, who invented the cotton gin because it turned out Eli Whitney was a New Englander who didn't know from cotton. Well, you get the idea. If Dyllan had been around in that time, we would have known their stories, and stories are everything. That gives you just some idea of the impact of her work now and future. And I'm so glad to be able to bring her out from behind the scenes. And you will see how hard it was by the fact that she made her own mockumentary to introduce her. You will see her sense of humor. It's ordered up by her.
My parents always told me I was the cutest baby.
When Dyllan was born, she was so ugly that her mother and I pointed to the cesarean baby next to her and pretended it was ours.
I always loved watching Katie Couric on the Today Show. She was so smart and funny, and I remember thinking, I could do that. I remember meeting Katie Couric and immediately connecting with her. She really took me under her wing.
Dyllan McGee. Never heard of him. Who's he?
Katie and I grew very close. She saw real star quality in me, but I just didn't want to be on camera and deal with all that fame and attention. I wanted to work for a smaller company.
Dyllan first came right after she got turned down by the Today Show. She begged and she begged, and finally, she was so relentless, I finally gave in and gave her a job.
I told Gloria I wanted to do a film about her life, and she thought it was a fabulous idea.
I thought it was a terrible idea.
She immediately said yes.
I immediately said no.
After meeting with Gloria, I realized there might be an even bigger story to tell. And so I started doing everything I could to raise money for the project.
Early on in the project, Dyllan brought me with her to a lot of very random fundraising events, and I mean random. Grocery stores, nail salons, dry cleaners. Eventually, I started wondering if they were actually fundraising events at all, or if I was just helping her run errands.
The big moment for the project was when AOL came on board.
My wife Nancy met Dyllan at an event for Gloria Steinem, and next thing I know, Dyllan was at our house for dinner on a Friday night. I got home, and the door opens up, and this little person walks in. Dyllan would not leave the house that night until we said yes. I dragged her out of the house. She was wrapped around my ankle like one of those little Chihuahua dogs that bites. I just said yes to have her leave our house, and that's how the whole project started.
Tim was so excited, he immediately put the entire weight of AOL behind it.
Dyllan knew nothing about building a brand. I kept telling her how important branding was, and she'd always say, that sounds too corporate. I'm a filmmaker, not a brand. Thank God we ignored her. Wait, she's not gonna see this, is she?
My maker's interview was the very first time I admitted publicly that I leave the office at 5:30, and that was a really hard thing to do. But Dyllan was so encouraging because she leaves the office at 1:30.
Just between us, I think Cheryl is a little intimidated by how perfect I am as a mom. I mean, the whole work-life balance thing, it's so easy. I never bring work home with me.
Mom is always working. Sometimes she takes away our allowance if we aren't feminist enough. Wait, I have a mom?
Sometimes I have to remind Dyllan that Sheryl Sandberg's book, Lean In, is not always the best bedtime reading for our boys. But we're all very proud of her for winning the Matrix Award. Congratulations, love.
Congratulations, Dyllan.
Congratulations on your Matrix Award, Dyllan. Woo!
Congratulations, Dyllan.
Congratulations, Dyllan. Not one bit of this would have happened without you.
Congratulations, Dyllan.
Dyllan, congratulations. You're a visionary and you're awesome, and we're really happy to be partnered with you. And go get them.
Congratulations, Dyllan. Team Makers is so proud of you.
Congratulations, Dyllan.
Congrats, Mom. We love you.
Thank you, Gloria. I also want to thank the New York Women in Communications, my partner, Peter Kuhnhart, who I did beg for a job, and he launched me on my career, and whose belief in me is really why I'm here today. And AOL, oh my gosh, and especially Tim and Nancy Armstrong and Maureen Sullivan, who took this crazy idea I had and put it on steroids. And I have to say, Eileen, no offense, but I don't Google, I AOL. And thanks to Makers broadcast partners, PBS, Beth Hoppe and Bill Gardner, who are here today. They are changing the face of public media, and I'm so honored to be a part of that platform. The entire Makers team who are here, go Makers! Woohoo! And then there are the Matrix Makers. My goodness, I have to say, every time that New York Times ad came out, and it came out an awful lot, I was so proud to be a part of this incredible group. And then there's Gloria. Not only, Gloria, was your no the best rejection I've ever had, but your yes to honoring me means more than any award I could ever receive. But it also kind of sucks. And let me explain why. Because the truth is, as you could tell from that video, I'm not that deep. David Remnick would never hire me to write an article for The New Yorker. But you are incredible, and my colleague, the great Amanda McCall, who produced that hilarious video that you just saw, she once gave me a t-shirt, and it said, WWGD. What would Gloria do? And I think if we all took that advice, the world would be a much better place. So, yeah. The other reason that it sucks having Gloria here is because I usually just plagiarize her words of wisdom and claim them as my own in my speeches, and having you here makes that really awkward. So I'm left feeling a little naked and having to give my own words of wisdom. And so let's just think of these as, for what it's worth. And there are only two of them. And the first is, let's face it, the F word is feminism. And while it took me a long time, longer than I care to admit, I wear that term like a badge of honor. And I promise you, if for one day we took away all of the rights that feminists like Gloria and the great Marlo Thomas, who is also here with us today, they've won for us, we would be racing into the streets to march wearing an I'm a feminist t-shirt. And the only other thing that I want to share with you is focus on what matters. And this I learned from my husband, Mark, who lives every day to the fullest. He, in this high-speed, high-volume world that we live in, it's so easy to get caught up in the minutia and not focus on what's really meaningful in life. And so I constantly try to remind myself what is meaningful to me, and it really boils down to two things. Uh-oh. Aww. Aww. So what's meaningful to me is two things. One is telling stories of injustice so that history never repeats itself. And the second is spending time with friends and family and my 2 feminist sons, Max and Henry, and my adorable husband, Mark Weigel. So, Gloria Steinem, I'm going to steal from her again. She calls herself a hopeaholic, and she says that social change takes 100 years. So if that's true, we are 50 years down with 50 more to go, and my hopeaholic side says that my hope is that makers will play a role in helping us reach that goal. Thank you.